Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of the Fat Guy Podcast. I'm the Fat Guy. Most people just call me Brett. Glad to have you aboard today, whether you're just trying to start a keto diet or whether you've been doing one for a while or maybe just looking to explore it more before you think about starting it. Hopefully I'll be able to help you today. We're going to be talking about the big three mistakes that people make when they start a keto diet, and really it's the reason a lot of people fail or say it's too hard or it's not healthy or it's no good when actually it's just them doing it wrong. So I've got the three big mistakes plus a bonus. Stick around for that. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I have no formal medical training. You shouldn't take anything I say in this podcast as being specific medical advice for you. Before you begin any kind of a weight loss or diet program, you should always consult with a doctor. And I'm not giving any specific kind of weight loss advice for you. This is just my personal opinion and my personal experiences from helping a lot of people and, of course, from doing it myself and from the endless research that I've done. But look, you take care of you, okay? Follow us on social media, Fat Guy Podcast, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. The username is Fat Guy Podcast. You can also subscribe. The Apple Podcast. We're also on the Google Play Store. So if you don't understand any of that, download the Spreaker app, Spreaker, Spreaker. It's a free podcast app. It's the company that hosts my podcast. Once you download it, search for Fat Guy Podcast. Follow it, hit the heart button, subscribe to it, and not only will you see all the previous episodes and stay up to date on new ones, but there's thousands and thousands of other podcasts on there. Who knows what you'll find that you might like. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Something as serious as diet, it's always amazed me how people who will do something as serious as completely changing their diet don't spend enough time doing research. And I think that's one of the benefits I had when I started, because I'm a research nerd. And not only was I researching it for me, but the reason I went keto was in an attempt to help my mom, who was battling with cancer and at that time had a bowel perforation. She had lost tons of weight. I was trying to figure out ways to get a lot of calories in her without her having to eat very much food. And I fully believe the keto diet extended my mom's life because she was losing weight like nobody's business. She couldn't eat, and I came up with a keto drink concoction that got 2,000 calories a day in her without her having to consume very much, in terms of mass. And so she was able to get it down, and she actually started gaining weight again. And, ultimately she lost the battle, but I'll 100% believe always, because I saw it, that keto extended my mom's life some. And obviously keto helped me lose 125 pounds or so. And so I did a lot of research. Some people, and I get this, so I get questions all the time. So I know anything new can be confusing. So obviously a ketogenic diet is a brief overview of what it is before I get into the big mistakes you make. So it's not a high protein diet, okay? It's a moderate protein diet. It's not high protein, and that's the first mistake people make. They're like, oh, I'll just eat a bunch of chicken and a bunch of steak, and I'll be good. Well, chicken is the worst thing you can eat. If you're going to eat chicken, it needs to be dark meat, preferably thighs, and you need to eat it with the skin on. Now, see, this goes against everything you've ever been taught, right? You've been taught to lose weight, you need to eat lean chicken breast without the skin, right? Well, if you do that, you're not going to get any fat. There's no fat in a chicken breast, and the only small amount of fat there is in a chicken breast is in the skin. Fat is the satiating part of the diet. Fat is what makes you feel full. Fat is what gives you calories without raising blood sugar and spiking insulin. Fat is very important. So you need to keep that in mind. It is a high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb diet. So you want your carbs to be 20 carbs or less, and you've got to track them. You can't really make it up. You need to download MyFitnessPal, and you need to put the food you eat in there, and you need to see what the carbs are. So there's just no way. I guess that's another bonus tip. It shouldn't be a tip because there's no way you can know if you're doing keto unless you're tracking. That should go without saying. Nevertheless, I have met people that try to do it without tracking. Once you've been on it a year or something, and you know all the foods you like to eat, you probably won't have to track that much, except for when you eat something new. Like, you'll get into a routine. You'll be eating the same meals over and over. That's what we do as humans. But those the first 6 weeks you got to track a lot. And then the first few months, you really need to keep tracking. You just got to track. So you need about 20 grams of carbs. If you're a big guy like me, I'm 6'4". If you're over 6 foot tall, I would say you could probably get away with 25 grams of carbs, but 20 is going to be better. Stick with 20. And then the overall makeup, this is in percentages, and you can get this in MyFitnessPal. You want your percentages of fat to be 60% or higher. So when you look at your breakdown in MyFitnessPal and you go to the nutrition tab, which if you're in your diary where you're tracking food, scroll all the way to the bottom and hit nutrition. And then if you'll notice at the top of that nutrition tab, there's 3 categories. You got calories, you got nutrition, and you got macros, I think it is, or something. There's 3 options you can look at. But it'll tell you the percentage of fat. You want your fat to be 60% or more. The first thing you need to do is hit your protein, though, and fill in everything else with fat. The easiest way to do that is by mostly eating beef. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ever have chicken, but you need to mostly eat beef. It needs to be hamburger patties, well, except for breakfast. So breakfast is bacon. You just need to eat bacon for breakfast, okay? Just eat bacon for breakfast. Bacon and eggs. Cook them eggs in some butter or cook them in the bacon fat and have bacon and eggs for breakfast. Keto 101. That's a perfect keto meal. Bacon and eggs. And you don't have to just have it for breakfast. You have it for lunch. You can have it for dinner. But other than that, it needs to be mostly beef. Hamburger patties and steak. Okay? Maybe you cook a roast. Or maybe you cook some brisket. Or maybe you have some, whatever. It needs to be mostly beef because beef has fat in it. And ribeyes have a lot of fat. So, I know ribeyes are expensive, but 1 or 2 nights a week you can have ribeyes, and then the other couple nights a week maybe you have less expensive steak, or you have hamburger meat. And when you get the hamburger meat, get the kind that's at least 80-20. But if you can get it, get the 75-25. I saw that at Walmart, seen it at Publix. You want the higher fat. And then, a couple nights a week have chicken, but it needs to be thighs. Thighs and legs, but mostly thighs. And leave the skin on. You want to eat the skin, okay? So, for women, you're going to want to eat 60 to 75 grams of protein a day. So that pretty much tells you how you need to eat when you're tracking it. You're going to have 20 grams of carbs. You're going to have 60 to 75 grams of protein a day. And all the other foods you eat will be fat. Okay? Pretty simple. For men, you'll be on the upper end of that, 75 to 100 grams of protein a day. So the taller you are, the higher end, the shorter you are, the lower end. Just play around with it. See where you feel your best. But if you want to start out, you can start out on the higher end simply because it'll be easier. But you may find you lower it at some point. So that's a ketogenic diet. It's low carbs, it's moderate protein, and it's high fat. The fat is the satiating, and then the fat is what doesn't cause elevated blood sugar or spike insulin, and that's why it works so well for weight loss. So when people start it, here's the 3 mistakes they make. These are the 3 big ones. So here's where you start taking notes, okay? Mistake number 1 is not eating enough food. When I work with people, I tell them to eat. Don't get hungry. That first week to 10 days, don't ever get hungry. Even if you overeat. And people that tell you calories aren't important because you're eating keto, they're full of crap. Calories are always important, okay? Calories are always important. You can't eat unlimited calories and lose weight. But that first week to 10 days is all about switching your body over to being a fat burner and not a sugar burner. And so we're not really all that worried about cutting calories too much. We don't ever want you to get hungry. All the other symptoms you're likely or possibly will suffer, let's don't make hunger one of them. So when you get hungry, stick something keto in your mouth and eat it. That's my answer. Stick something keto in your mouth and eat it, preferably beef. Nothing is more filling than beef. Get you a hamburger patty and eat it. Get you 4 to 6 slices of bacon and eat it. You know, I eat bacon like most people eat beef jerky. Always have a bunch of it cooked up. The best way to cook bacon, in my opinion, is in an oven. You get you some parchment paper. Lay the bacon out on it, single file on a big pan with parchment paper in it. And you put it in there and bake it at 350 or so. And God, it cooks up so uniform. It retains so much of the fat, and the flavor is so much better. And you can cook up a humongous pan of it and then put it in Ziploc bags and keep it in the fridge. You always got bacon. I just eat it cold. It's like eating beef jerky. It's amazing. Bacon is an amazing snack. Anyway, don't ever get hungry, okay? Don't think that first week to 10 days that you got to be hungry. You don't. Just make sure that everything you're eating is keto, and make sure you're not going over 20 carbs. That's the only problem. And that's why I think most people undereat, is because the food they choose isn't high fat enough. It has a tad too many carbs, and the next thing they know, they've hit their 20 carbs and they're screwed for the rest of the day. So it's very important that you choose carefully what you eat. Okay, you need a cup of vegetables or so with each, especially with lunch and dinner. You know, have you a cup of whether it's a cup of asparagus, a cup of broccoli, a cup of cauliflower, a cup of turnip greens or whatever. Make sure there's tons of butter on it. You cook your vegetables, you want tons of butter on it. That's where you get your fat. Vegetables are vehicles to haul fat around. That's all they are. So it needs to have either tablespoon of olive oil on it, tablespoon of butter, etc., etc. And other than that, it's going to be pretty much high quality cuts of meat with lots of fat. So again, that goes back to your chicken thighs with the skin on it, or your hamburger, the fatty cuts of hamburger meat, or your steaks or whatever, or bacon. Look, you don't have to just limit bacon to breakfast. You can have bacon again for lunch. You can have it again for dinner. Bacon is a great keto food. Don't get hungry. Okay? You're going to have enough other symptoms to worry about. Mistake number 2, again, your hunger, one last thing on hunger. Your hunger will correct itself if you eat keto correctly. So after you get fat adapted and you get through the carb withdrawal and all that stuff that's going to happen, and your body switches over to being a fat burner, and it's burning the fat for you, and you're starting to not just make ketones, but actually use them for energy, which takes a while for your body to get good at that. So once that starts happening, you're going to find that you're just not hungry as much anymore. And when that starts happening, that's good. Embrace it, okay? Don't force yourself to keep eating. Once you get to where you're not hungry anymore, don't force yourself to keep eating. That's how you lose the weight. People are like, man, it's so hard for me to eat the 3 meals a day. I'm just not hungry. I'm like, why are you eating 3 meals a day? If you're not hungry, don't eat. You should always skip breakfast. Once you get to that point where you're not hungry anymore, you skip breakfast. You don't eat it anymore. You can have breakfast, just make it for lunch. You have your bacon and eggs at lunch, and you have you some steak and vegetables for dinner, or hamburger meat and vegetables for dinner, or chicken thighs and vegetables for dinner. And that's it. You're done. That'll kick in, after the first week or so is when that'll kick in. But until that happens, cram your face full of keto food when you feel hungry. All right, so mistake number 2 is not eating enough fat. And I think I've covered that mostly in mistake number 1, but I want to make sure that we are very clear about this. To be successful in a ketogenic diet, the fat level has to be high, especially in the first weeks. Now, once you hit week 4, week 6 or something, you can actually lower the fat level down. You'll be so fat adapted, you'll be burning fat off your body, so you don't have to consume as much fat through your mouth, because your body will burn fat from your body. So even though you're not eating super high levels of fat, you'll still be on a high fat diet because your body's eating the fat that you're wearing around your belly. But in the first weeks, it's very important that you keep that fat level high. It's going to keep you satiated. It's going to keep you from getting hungry, and it's going to help train your body to be a fat burner, because that's what you're going to be feeding it. That's what it's going to be forced to use. So I just can't stress it enough. Your fat level needs to be at least 60% in MyFitnessPal. 70-75% is great. Anywhere between 60 and 75%. The higher end you can get, the better, but if you only hit the 60% mark, that's fine. Again, 4 weeks, 6 weeks down the road, you may lower it down to where your fat is only 50% of what you're eating. And as long as you're functioning fine with that, you're not getting hungry, and you're losing weight, you can do that. All right? Mistake number 3 is not taking electrolytes. Electrolytes are not optional. You don't have a choice in the matter. You have to take freaking electrolytes. So I'll explain it briefly. I've done other podcasts on it, so I won't go into a lot of detail. You can go look at older podcasts I've done on electrolytes for more detail. But when you go keto and you burn the carbs out of your system, you don't have glycogen stores anymore. Your body doesn't need water anymore. Your body uses water to, it uses for a lot of things, but one of the biggest things it uses water for is to suspend carbohydrates in the body, to suspend it. And it also uses it to address inflammation. Now, both of those come from a high level of carbs. Needing the carbs and then dealing with the inflammation. And so it retains all this water for that purpose. Once you get off the carbs and your glycogen stores go away and you're storing up a bunch of carbs, and then consequently your inflammation levels start dropping, that's a whole lot of water your body don't need anymore, and it's going to start letting it go. Matter of fact, the first week you're on keto, if you're doing it right, you should be peeing a lot. There should be 2 or 3 days in a row where you're like, God, why am I peeing every hour to 2 hours? It's crazy. Well, that's normal. That means you're doing it right. Problem with that is when you flush a ton of water out that way, electrolytes go with it. What are electrolytes? Well, these are salts in the bodies. This is salt, like you're normally accustomed to, table salt. But potassium, which is also a salt. Calcium, which is also a salt. Magnesium, which is also a salt. You can lose these things. Now, the most important one out of all these is the sodium. You've got to replace the sodium. Secondarily, most important is potassium. Now, your body has a unique ability to hang on to magnesium better. Magnesium stores are more fortified. So losing magnesium isn't as big of a problem, but it doesn't hurt to take a good magnesium supplement. Lastly is calcium. Your body has tons of places that stores calcium, and so that's not nearly as big of a deal. But salt and potassium are the big two. So go to the grocery store and buy you some light salt. I believe Morton's makes it, light salt, L-I-T-E. It's half sodium, it's half potassium. So in the morning, you're going to take here's the way I take it, and I like it. You take your glass of water, put your tablespoon of lemon juice in there, put a teaspoon of light salt in there, mix it up real good and drink it. And then in the evening, you're going to do the same thing. Pour you a glass of water, put you a teaspoon of light salt in there, mix it up and drink it. I'd say that's fine for day 1. I'd say for day 2, 3, and 4, you want to up that to 3 teaspoons. So you're going to do it 3 times a day. And then starting around day 5, you can probably back it back down to around 2 teaspoons a day. Now, if somewhere on day 3, day 4, you find that you have a pounding headache, you have fatigue, you feel like you're drained, you feel like you have the flu, you have achy bodies, that means the electrolytes, you're not replacing them enough. So you need to up them. Do you a tablespoon. Make it a bigger glass of water. Do it in a quart of water and sip it over the course of about an hour or so. Okay? You got to do the electrolytes. Now, once you get to that first week to 10 days, your reliance on electrolytes won't be nearly as important because your body will stabilize itself. That being said, you will always feel better if you always do electrolytes. I've been keto now for, a year and 10 months, year and 9 months, and I still take electrolytes every day. I still do it every day. I have at least a teaspoon of light salt. I do it in lemon juice, but I also do it in vinegar because vinegar helps you lose weight. Apple cider vinegar. That's something I enjoy drinking. I actually like it. Just take a big glass of water, put a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar there, a tablespoon of lemon juice, mix that teaspoon to a tablespoon of light salt in there and have that as a drink. Drink it, like 30 minutes before a meal or something. And it helps you eat less. It helps your body blunt the sugar effect and the insulin effect, which is more of what you want when you're trying to lose weight. And you get the electrolytes in. And I always feel better. A lot of times when you think you're craving something, like if you have a chip craving, You're craving salt. Your body's wanting salt. You don't want chips. Your body's wanting salt. Even chocolate candies and stuff, which are sweet and salty. You'll crave a lot of that stuff. Most of the time, 99%, sometimes it's a carb craving, but 99% of the time your body's just low on electrolytes. If you'll keep your electrolytes up and don't worry about overdosing on salt, you're not going to. If you're on a low-carb diet, you will not overdose on salt. But the only reason salt is a problem is for people who eat the standard American diet that's full of carbohydrates, which keeps them bloated and full of water and retaining all kind of salt and stuff to begin with, and the inflammation and all that comes along with it. And then on top of that, they add even more salt, and it causes problems. But if you're on a ketogenic diet, you will not cause problems with salt. Okay? Salt is not an issue. Salt is your friend. You want to take it every day. My bonus mistake, and this applies to the first week, is not making substitutions to make the change more tolerable. So I see people that normally drink like coffee with cream and sugar every morning, and they don't like black coffee, and so they'll just cut it out, and they're like done with it. Well, not only are you going through the carb withdrawal and the changes from the keto, you're now going through extreme caffeine withdrawal because you're used to having 2 cups of coffee every morning. You need to go get you some heavy whipping cream, which should have 0 carbs per 2 tablespoons or per tablespoon, one or the other. And put you a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream in that coffee and try to drink it like that. That should make it tolerable. So you're still keeping your coffee in there. You're making some kind of substitution. Now, if that's not quite enough, and trust me when I hate to tell you this, if absolute worst comes to worst, you can try use some Splenda, but I recommend that be the only last ditch scenario. Get you some, preferably would be to get you some stevia drops, not stevia powders. No kind of stevia powders in a pack because they add dextrose to that. But generally, if you get stevia drops, it's just pure stevia, and so a couple drops in that add a little sweetness that might help you. But if you can get away with it and try really hard, because after a couple days you'll get used to it. And I know this not because I'm a coffee drinker, because I've worked with a lot of coffee drinkers. And I know it works. The heavy whipping cream, just that and the black coffee will get you through the hump, and you can still have your coffee every day and you'll feel okay. So that's one change that you can make. If you went from being a Coke addict like most people, where you drink Cokes every day or Dr. Peppers or Mountain Dews or something, you got to let all that go. Okay, if you normally had a few Cokes a day, look, go buy you some Coke Zero. Coke Zero is the one I recommend, but Sprite Zero is okay, but it doesn't have the caffeine. And worst comes to worst, you can just have a good old diet Dr. Pepper. It needs to be diet. And look, this isn't long term. You need to get off that crap. But to get you through the first week, my tip for that is to have it if you have to have it. Look, make sure you have to have it. But don't be miserable and fail because you don't do it. Don't let not doing it cause you to fail. If it's the choice between drinking a Diet Coke and failure, choose the Diet Coke. But my tip to you would be to you don't have it between meals. If you've got to have the Diet Coke, wait until you eat lunch and then have the Diet Coke with your lunch. And then on later in the afternoon, if you're feeling like, God, I need some carbonated, caffeinated beverages, wait till dinner and drink the Diet Coke or the Diet Dr. Pepper or whatever eat it when you consume the food. That way you're getting all that impact at the same time rather than in the middle of the times when you shouldn't be eating, because the times of not eating are important. This is when the insulin levels fall. This is when the blood sugar levels fall. This is when the body starts accessing fat stores and starts burning it. So you don't mess with those in-between times. But make substitutions. It's okay the first week. You don't have to be 100% pure. Ultimately down the road, you'll want to be off of those Coke Zeros or Diet Cokes or whatever's, Diet Pepsis. And you just have them occasionally as a treat. Once a week or once every 2 weeks or something as a treat, you'll have you a Diet Coke. You're going to be drinking them every day. But if you need that to get you through the first week, do it. If there's something that's going to prevent you from succeeding that you can make a substitution and stay on track, then do it. I hope this helped you in some way. If it has, please share it. Sharing is caring. That's for real. That's how I found keto. I owe 125-pound weight loss to somebody sharing keto on Facebook. Changed my life. You could change somebody's life by hitting the share button. Make sure you subscribe. Follow us on social media. Fat Guy Podcast is the username. Appreciate you so much. We'll talk to you next time. This will probably be my last keto podcast for a while, because unless something goes horribly wrong, I'm about to embark on an extended fast, and so my goal is to do fasting updates every day to share my experience with that. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon.